Welcome to My Teleconferencing. Please enter a participant code, then press pound. You are the only person on this conference. Please stay on the line.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Cool. So Orange Grove is not a, yeah, Orange Grove.
Hello, this is Taylor from the IT department. Somebody just joined the meeting.
Yeah, this is Barbara Tillman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 15th meeting of the Pima County Election Integrity Commission. Commissioner DeLarge, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to July 15th meeting.
Thank you. Roll call. Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner DeLarge.
Here.
Commissioner Mace.
Present.
Commissioner Hurley. Is Commissioner Hurley on the phone by any chance?
No, he will not make it today.
Thank you. Commissioner Tillman.
Present.
Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Kirshen. Here. Commissioner King.
Here.
And the chair is present. We do have a quorum. Do we have anybody that wants to address the commission call to the public? Hearing nobody, we'll move on. Approval of the June 17th, 2022 meeting summary.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner White.
I have reviewed the minutes, and I would like to make a motion that we postpone acceptance of the minutes until the next meeting. I don't believe that the minutes are of a quality that we need to present to the public, and I'd like to ask our administrative support to review those minutes and see if we can come up with a way to improve the quality so that they more accurately reflect the activities of the commission.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mace?
I will second my fellow commissioners' motion. I do think, reading over the minutes, we do need a little bit of quality control on them. I think it's maybe just probably simple training opportunity. Because if you read through them, there's really no cohesive narrative. You really can't tell what happened at the meeting. So because of that, I will be supporting my fellow commissioners.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The motion passes. The approval of the minutes will be delayed and postponed until next month. Agenda items, update on the election laws from the legislative session. Michael Rassi, update will be provided by email. Is there any discussion on the information provided by Mr. Rassi? We're going home early today, people. Okay, hearing none. Election and Recorder Director updates on upcoming election. I do not see anybody from the Recorder's office here. I don't know if anybody from the Recorder's office is online. Ms. Hargrove.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the first update is that I think you probably know, we received 211 of the ballot on demand printers on June 30th and received an email on this morning that we should receive the rest of the printers today. So those printers are, the 211 have been acceptance tested, and right now there is a representative from the vendor here working with my staff to actually start the LNA, the logic and accuracy testing of those printers with the iPads and making sure that the ballots print correctly. So that is happening as we speak right now. So that's what's going on now. And I did interview and fill 2 positions. However, one created another vacancy, will create another vacancy. So Vanessa Figueroa in my office has been promoted to the Administrative Services Manager position and hired a deputy for the office. His name is Jeremy George, and he will be coming from Louisiana. So he will start on August the 1st. And everything else is moving along. We are still continuing to prepare for the election, trying to adjust. Everybody's thinking from precinct to vote center, making sure that we are adjusting ballots, distribution, and everything to accommodate that. And training for poll workers begins on Monday, and it will run for 2 weeks. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
The deputy director position, that's kind of, sort of, a replacement for Mary Martinson?
And actually, no. So Vanessa, the Administrative Services Manager position, replaces Mary Martinson. The deputy position had not been filled. It had been vacant for a while.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is Barbara.
Commissioner Tillman, go ahead.
Could you give us a rundown on how the mock elections went and whether glitches were found and the problem solved?
Yes, ma'am. So the mock elections went well. There actually were not any equipment glitches or programming glitches. What occurred is the test environment did not have ballots for all of the new precincts, and so it would not produce a ballot for those precincts that were not originally in the 2018 election. But we did get some good feedback. I met with Sarah Ramsey on this week to talk about vote center setup and how we're going to look at that and training. So we had a really good meeting, and we're going to get through this election. We're going to come back together, invite some other folks in, talk about how things went and how we may be able to approve that. So the mock elections actually were very beneficial.
Commissioner White.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to inform the commission that I was able to visit 3 of the early voting sites and the administrative functions of the recorder's office this week. I think that a lot of thought has been put into the early voting sites and the staffing and the backup plans for equipment malfunctions and catastrophes like thunderstorms taking out the electrical power of a site and those kinds of issues. And I'm very confident that our recorder's office is prepared to conduct the early voting phase of the election between now and, I guess, Monday of August 1st, with emergency voting on Sunday and Monday of August. There were a couple of issues that I made a comment during the last EIC commission about the provisional ballots being how that was going to work. The early voting site will see very, very few provisional ballots to begin with. The only time that a provisional ballot will be issued is when someone appears that simply does not have any identification, or if there's a problem with their voter registration that can't be resolved at the site, they would be given a provisional ballot. But those voters that do need to change their address or their name or their other things can do that at the early voting sites, and that will be done in the same manner that it has been done for years, and all of that is legal. I'm going to follow that series of visits up. There's another early voting site opening in Oro Valley next week. I intend to visit that site as well. And then the next group of early voting sites, I think, open up on July 25th, and I'll visit some of those sites as well. I intend also to go to the elections department next week as they're gathering their equipment together and completing the test on it to put those into vote center sets, and just make sure that we can get the complete database in there and find voters and give them the right ballot and those kind of things. So anyway, that was just an update on what I did this past week.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Anybody else have any questions, comments, discussion? Commissioner King?
Yes, yes, ma'am. The question was raised last night regarding sample ballots. Oh, sorry. Question was raised last night at one of our meetings regarding early ballots at the vote centers, or sample ballots at the vote centers. Can you provide any information on that?
Yes, so sample ballots at the vote centers, they're going to look a little bit different from what you're accustomed to seeing, so it's not going to look like a regular ballot. It's going to be a list of the candidates that are on each ballot for each district, and with kind of a guide to let people find all the candidates on their ballot. We went through a lot of scenarios trying to figure out how to create a sample ballot with all of the different ballot styles in the vote centers. So there will be sample ballots in the vote centers, and we'll be able to explain to voters how to figure out who their candidate is.
Will that be similar to the 6-page document, Excel spreadsheet that was sent out, something like that?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Mace?
I have a question, and I'm not well, yeah, for lack of a better place to put it, I'm going to put it in this agenda item. Last month, we had quite a conversation about the legality of allowing, I believe it was political party observers into the early voting spaces. And the recorder's office, which I know there's not a representative present now, the recorder's office said that she was not going to allow people into those sites, if I recall correctly. And we had asked both the Elections Department and the Recorder's Office to go back to see if they could confer with anyone from the Civil Department of Pima County Attorney's Office about that. And I was wondering if that had ever been followed up on.
Let me address that from several perspectives. The resolution that was passed at last month's, and that'll be the next agenda item, the resolution that was passed at last month's agenda got to the Board of Supervisors late. That's my fault. I was dealing with a crisis that tends to be the only crisis in front of me at the time, and took my mind off of that particular issue. The other thing that came to mind as I finally got it down there, and it's been an issue with this commission for a long time, I don't know that it's the uniqueness of the system that we have in Pima County. And it's my understanding changes that took place before I was a full-time resident here again, when we implemented the permanent early voting list. And for some reason, all of the election activity that occurred before election day is now done by the Recorder's Office rather than the Elections Department. The Elections Department doesn't get involved until the actual handling and opening of the returned early ballots, but the signature verification and all of that stuff occurs in the Recorder's Office, which this commission has no sway over, nor does the Board of Supervisors. So asking the Board of Supervisors to tell the Recorder what to do is kind of pointless. And it got to the point over time where, with the previous elections director and some former members of this commission and the previous recorder, that the relationship between the Recorder's Office and this commission became very antagonistic and less than fruitful. With the changes that have occurred so far, it's been a very amicable relationship. We appreciate the support and the input of the Recorder's Office, but we don't have any sway over them as a separately elected official. Certainly, the Recorder has been, for the most part, open to suggestions that we've made, but the areas of the election that she handles as the Recorder is something that we don't have any sway over. We're perfectly free to make those decisions. Now, the only conversation that I heard from the Recorder was they've never had observers in the early voting centers in previous elections. I have no idea what the Republican Party has done. I know the Democratic Party has never had observers for the primary election because it's not a contentious environment where you're making sure that every person has the appropriate ballot. The Democrats are voting against the Democrats, and the Republicans are voting against the Republicans, and the independents or no party declareds are voting for and against whoever they decided to choose, but there's no cross-party lines there. So from my understanding is the parties have never had a desire to have observers either in the early voting sites or, for the most part, in the primary elections in the past. The observers have primarily showed up during the tabulation process and the actual ballot processing process during the general election, but very little has been done. Now, if you have information where the Recorder has said she's absolutely not going to let people in the early voting centers, I don't know that to be the case one way or the other.
No, and I appreciate, and I do understand that the Recorder is elected and can do what she pleases. And I guess I had just, gotten used to her being here, so understand about the lines there. And I was simply following up on it because it was just stuck out in my mind as a one thing that this board had agreed on unanimously in quite a while. So that's all I was following up on.
Thank you for that, Commissioner White.
A couple of issues. I want to be very careful about creating unnecessarily an antagonistic relationship between this commission and the Recorder. The Recorder has election responsibilities. This commission is involved with ensuring that we have election integrity in the county, not just necessarily with the elections department, which works for the county administrator. So I want to keep those channels open to the extent we can. I don't think that this issue has been finally legally resolved by the county attorney. That was the impression that I got in my discussions with the recorder yesterday. And so I think it's still a matter that needs to be addressed by the county attorney. I believe that our basis for making the resolution last week was sound, that the vote centers or the early voting sites are polling places, and the law clearly prescribes that political party observers are permitted in polling places. And so I'll be glad to follow up on that and see if we can get a more definitive resolution from the county attorney one way or the other. I know that there are actual physical restraints on the space available in some of these sites, but it's not, I wouldn't want to have a general prohibition based on limitations at a few of the sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns?
Oh, no, just want to let you know that each one of you received a folder, I believe. That is the information that we're using to send out to, that we're providing to residents. It's a press package that the press received, and the little post business cards have the QR codes for the vote centers, as well as our Vote 2022 page, which gives information about election dates and things like that. So I just wanted you to have that.
What are we doing to accommodate people that don't have a smartphone and people that don't understand what a QR code is and how to utilize that technology?
Yes, sir. So the media also has ads in the newspaper, as well as on the television and radio. So we're trying to get the word out in many different ways. Any opportunity that I get to speak to a group, I'm also providing that information. And I will be also sending this information out to each one of the party chairs so that each political party can distribute as they see fit.
Is there any plan to do a mailing of the list of vote centers to registered voters?
Yes, so so probably no, but I did ask the communications department about it. They cannot narrow it down to just registered voters. So we would have to send a mailing out to everyone in the county, and it would be really expensive to do that. So at this point, I'm not planning to do that because it's just not in my budget right now to do that. But yeah, I would love to send it out to registered voters. Each person who gets a sample ballot in the mail will receive the information about vote centers. But right now, that's not the plan to send that mailing out.
Okay, and it's my understanding, and the key word you used was sample ballot. Anybody that's on the early voting list does not receive a sample ballot. Is that correct? So the only people receiving a sample ballot are people that are not on the early voting list?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. So people that are not getting an early ballot, we can safely assume that they will get mailed a list of the vote centers along with their sample ballot. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner King.
When will that sample ballot be going out in the mail?
I don't know the exact date. It's my understanding it's usually 2 weeks prior to the election, but I will double check that.
Commissioner Mace.
This is Barbara. Question?
Go ahead, Commissioner Tillman.
I want to praise the IT people for putting the excellent interactive map of vote centers on the website. It's an excellent tool and easy to use if you happen to know how to use computers and all of that stuff. But you can go to the interactive map and click on any dot and get the full information about that vote center. So praise to the IT people who did that.
Commissioner Mace?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, definitely big ups to IT. We'll always give IT props. Quick question for you, Ms. Hargrove. So with the Board of Supervisors lifting the vaccine mandate last week, just want to see if you've been getting a bump in volunteer or, poll workers, anything like that? Are you seeing any change, good, bad, otherwise, from that resolution or from that lifting of the mandate?
Our poll workers are in pretty good shape. We do have some gaps in some of the vote centers that need more Republican poll workers, but that mandate was lifted prior to July 5th. The boards, the early boards, we have about 30 people, additional people that we'll be interviewing next week. I'm pretty sure we'll be able to fill our boards with the rest of those individuals.
Commissioner King?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Hargrove, what was the total number of Republican poll workers that's currently needed, and will the interviews for next week be able to fill those remaining positions?
I do not have the total number of Republican poll workers that were needed. I do have a spreadsheet. I can go back to my office and look at that. The process is different. So the interviews next week are for election aides, which are our intermittent employees. They're not poll workers. So poll workers, we can receive that information. They can tell us they want to work. We can go in and add them. With the intermittent employees, they have to apply through the HR process. So through that process, I'm pretty sure, I don't know how many are Republicans at this point, but I'm pretty sure we will be able to fill we need about 8, 9 more people, Republicans.
Just a point of clarification. Is it mandatory that they be Democrat, Republicans, or that they just be different political party affiliations to include no party candidates as well, or no party individuals?
So we do have independents. We try to make it as equitable as possible with the Democrats and Republicans, but we do have some independents, libertarians.
Yeah, we don't want to leave Commissioner Kirshner completely out of the picture down there at the end.
No, we do have libertarian poll workers.
And it's my understanding that they don't necessarily need to be, at the boards, they don't necessarily need to be a Democrat and a Republican. They just need to be differing political party affiliations to include no party affiliation.
We usually, there may be one no party affiliation, but we normally try to make sure that it's independent, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. So they've declared some party.
We don't have an independent party.
I know.
There are no party declared.
They choose any group they want, right? But we normally try to pair them with a Democrat or Republican if we have any.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, last item on the agenda, status of the resolution submitted by the EIC to the clerk of the board on June 30th, 2022. I don't have any update other than it's my understanding, and I haven't seen the final agenda yet, but it will be on the Board of Supervisors agenda at their Tuesday meeting next week. And Commissioner White has generously volunteered to find out the status of the situation with county legal as far as the observers in the early vote centers are concerned.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will do that. I see that the Chief of Staff for Supervisor Christie is in the audience. Could I ask her to come forward and speak to why the resolution was not presented at the last Board of Supervisors? I think it was submitted late for the agenda, and I just want some clarification for the Commission so that they understand why it was not already considered.
Yikes. Good morning. The cookies are a holdover from when I sat in that seat. The resolution did not appear on the last meeting agenda because it was submitted after the deadline. The next Board of Supervisors meeting is August 2nd.
All right, thank you.
So they are only meeting once in July.
That is correct.
Okay. And the fact that it didn't get submitted in a timely fashion is my fault. Although there are discussions that I will have with Ms. Hargrove regarding that as we talk about administrative assistance going forward. It's difficult to get something on the Board of Supervisors agenda if you aren't a supervisor or some kind of body, because I was told when I finally did present it that it was going out to the supervisors and back to the elections department to get somebody to put it on the agenda. It's not something that this commission has the authority to do. The Board of Supervisors control their own agenda. Getting it to the clerk was my fault, but once it gets to the clerk, there's no requirement that any supervisor actually submit it for inclusion in the agenda. So, but it was late. That's my fault. Any recommendations for items on next month's agenda? Commissioner Mace?
No, I don't know if it's appropriate for next month's agenda, but, Director Hargrove mentioned that you're going to do like an after-action kind of debriefing. I would definitely be interested in hearing kind of some high-level, points on how that discussion went, what we learned, what we didn't. I don't know if that will be ready in time for our next meeting, but just something to put out there.
Our next meeting is going to be relatively late in the month, I think, since the 2nd is a Tuesday. That means the first Friday would be the 5th, or the 4th or the 5th, so we would not meet until later in the month, like the 18th or the 20th, so almost 3 weeks after the election we should have. My understanding is the canvass is supposed to have been completed by the Board of Supervisors prior to our next meeting, so the information should be, if not completely available, definitely a worthwhile discussion topic at next month's meeting.
Yes, so the canvass is the second Board of Supervisors meeting of the month in August. So, I guess
that would be the 16th,
mm-hmm,
and we will meet that Friday.
Yes.
So
I'm not sure.
Yeah, the canvas will be completed prior to our August meeting, so the information should definitely be available. One comment I would like to make on agenda items again. The sooner information is available to the commissioners to digest prior to this meeting, the better off we will be. And I would like, and I'm not picking on Commissioner Preble because she's no longer here, but the information that I received was that she wanted a resolution on observers in the vote centers. I didn't see the text of the resolution until I got here for the meeting. She hadn't formulated and put it together. Now, I might have missed it in an email somewhere, but the first time I saw the actual text of the resolution was when I walked onto the dais. So,
yeah, she didn't send anything.
Yeah. Commissioner White submitted a resolution as well, and the text of the resolution was made available to the commissioners significantly before the meeting, well after the normal agenda deadline, but something that was a little bit more time sensitive. Yeah, don't tell me you want to submit a resolution. Present me with the resolution if you as a commissioner want to submit it for distribution anywhere, because again, I fully supported the intent of the resolution, but working with multi-elected officials, it's better to have that in writing far enough ahead of the meeting that we can make an intelligent decision as opposed to a politically correct decision. So I would appreciate your cooperation in that regard. And if you have any other recommendations for next month's agenda, please let Mr. Federico know so that he can get them to myself or Mr. Kirshner so that we can get them on next month's agenda. And yes, we will be having a discussion prior to next month's meeting. So is there anything else that needs, yeah, next month's meeting is August 19th. Is there anybody that has any problems with that particular date? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, so moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all very much.